On April 20th, 2010, the Deepwater Horizon disaster changed the lives of millions living near the Gulf of Mexico, as well as the scientists who responded to the crisis. These are some of their stories, intimate portraits of research, innovation, discovery. Welcome, I'm Jim McNamee, editor of Dispatches from the Gulf, a series of documentaries, short videos, and podcasts. In today's podcast, we're joining biological oceanographer Uta Passow to talk about snow. No snowmen here, but these flakes certainly are unique. Dr. Passow researches marine snow and what it means for the health of marine ecosystems after an oil spill.
So marine snow are the dust bunnies of the ocean. They're basically particles which consist of many, much smaller particles. So in some cases, they consist of a lot of tiny algae, tiny plants. There's feces from tiny animals. There's maybe pieces of dead animals or other dead matter. These particles get colonized by a whole group of organisms that live off the particle or of the organisms that live off the particle. So it's its own little microcosm. And these marine snow are really important because they're the only way how food gets transported to the deep ocean. All the organisms, from fish to mammals to birds to little zooplankton and bigger plankton, in the deep ocean they rely on food falling down, and a big part of this food that is falling down is marine snow.
Passow's work involves some pretty innovative ways to recreate both the particles of marine snow themselves and their descent thousands of feet into the depths of the ocean.
We collect natural particles from the ocean and incubate them in these lab experiments, and then we can monitor how marine snow is formed as a function of temperature or light conditions or the type of particles we use. And what we found is that after only a few hours, marine snow formed, and you see these very feathery, web-like particles hanging in the water, and they hang there for an hour maybe, that kind of time scale, and then they sink. These tanks create an infinity water column. So if a particle never touches the wall, but it sinks and at the same time slowly gets moved up so that it never actually reaches the bottom of the container. So it really simulates sinking of particles of marine snow in the water.
These rotating infinite water columns have allowed Uta and her team to learn a lot about how oil affects marine snow and how marine snow affects oil.
One of the big findings from the Deepwater Horizon spill, from the research following the spill, is that this marine snow incorporates oil. It's very sticky, and it basically collects all the oil it encounters, either when it forms or on its way when sinking, and it collects this oil and transports it to the sea floor. And normally oil goes upwards, right? Oil is positively buoyant. When you mix your salad dressing, you can tell how the oil comes to the surface of your bottle. And so this is a process where oil actually moves the other way, where oil gets transported to the sea floor, which means it's being removed from the water, but at the same time, it's then at the sea floor impacting animals that live on the sea floor, like the deep sea corals were covered with oily marine snow. We also found that under some conditions, the oil itself enhances the formation of marine snow and creates it. So we probably had a bigger event of marine snow sinking after the spill than we would have had normally. In some cases, it got so thick that it actually suffocated the animals that are living in the sediments, burrowing and living in the sand and on the seafloor. So it's a process which distributes the oil in a fairly unexpected way.
It takes dedication and resolve to come up with innovations like the methods that Uta and her colleagues used to make discoveries about poorly understood phenomena like marine snow.
There's many reasons why I really love being a biological oceanographer, but one is that we have these very different tasks we do. We go out in the field, we collect samples, and we work in the lab under very controlled conditions, very detail-oriented, and we analyze the samples. Sometimes that's boring because for days we do the same thing, but it's only a small part. Because what happens is you collect some data, be it in the field or in an experiment, and you had an idea of what you were expecting, and you look at it and it's not what you were expecting at all. It's kind of doesn't fit. It just doesn't seem right. And at first you kind of want to throw it away, but as a trained scientist, you don't just throw data away because it doesn't please your expectations. So you keep thinking about it, and you keep nagging at it, and you keep talking about it with people, and you keep reading about it, and sometimes it takes months or even years, and then suddenly something clicks and it all makes sense. You suddenly understood what you hadn't connected, or how something works differently, and you understand the process, and that's a wonderful thing. And I've had several of those moments in my career.
Today, thousands of scientists, oceanographers, chemists, engineers, biologists are all working together to develop newer and better ways to understand and ease the impact of oil spills. To learn more about their work, visit our webpage at dispatchesfromthegulf.com. Funding for this podcast was provided by a grant by the Gulf of Mexico Research Initiative. And thanks for listening.